Hi, Terry.
How we doing, Joy? This is Brad.
Hey, Brad, how are you?
Good, good. For some reason, my video camera isn't working, but that's probably better for everybody.
Yeah, here I am with a baseball cap on here today, so maybe I should turn mine off too.
You're good.
So we go from 75 degrees to 30, huh? Just like that.
I know. Yesterday was so warm, and yeah, it's honestly been nice. So we're busy calving, and the ground's dry. We need moisture, but if we're gonna have a drought. Now's the perfect time here. The last months for calving for everybody.
Yep, you get those calves on the ground and then it can rain, right?
Yes, absolutely.
The only thing I would say is it feels more like South Dakota today.
Yeah,
That's true.
you're right, Terry. How's the campaign coming?
You know what? There isn't one so far. There's only two of us running for two positions, but they have, not that anybody's counting, until next Tuesday night to turn in petitions. So,
Sure,
I was
sure.
just gonna ask that. I thought it was coming up.
yes, it is. And I found out the other day that they can actually mail them on Tuesday. So it could be 3, 4 days if somebody to for sure. But
Oh,
if somebody does that, they're just doing it to aggravate me. So
right, right. Well, you do a wonderful job, that's for sure.
I don't know. We'll see. You know, I did get to meet Matt Roby up there and Vilhauer, and they're both very good people.
Oh, those are two good guys,
Now,
Terry.
Garcia, I don't know.
Well, she's a different sort of cat. Yeah. She kind of living in a different world, I think. Yeah, I've known her pretty much ever since they came to town here, and she's always been like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a newfound behavior.
I've often said, you know, it'd be a boring world if everybody was like you and I.
That's right. Yeah, she marches to the beat of her own drum, that's for sure.
So have you got your office for lease? I see the sign in the back there. Or is,
No, it's just a sign leaning against the wall in my office that I got to take to a property.
We'll give
Commercial real
everybody else
estate.
just a moment to hop on. We've got just a minute here before our official start time at 10:30.
Hi, Nick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
so Cam, you are brightening up the screen today.
Yeah, my daughter got me this suit or this jacket for Christmas because she said I needed some brightening up in my life, and yeah, it's good. I like it.
Pretty classy.
Looks sharp.
Yes. Tell her she did a good job.
I will do that. She would enjoy that.
Okay, folks, we're right at the 10:30 hour. Chairman Dykhouse is not able to join our call this morning, so Vice Chair Brian Sandvig is going to be leading our meeting this morning. You should have received a link to the agenda and the related materials via email. They're all accessible at the Boards and Commissions site as well. With that, I'll turn it over to Board Member Sandvig to start the meeting.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody's dialed in for a good meeting this morning. At this point, we wanted to do quick introductions for any non-board member attendees so we can make sure we've got everybody accounted for here. I'm going on my screen. Why don't we have the residents introduce themselves quickly?
Good morning, Tiffany Sanderson at Lake Erie Tech.
Good morning, Teresa Creasy, Mitchell Tech.
Good morning, Corey Klossman at Southeast Tech.
MMA from Western Dakota on. Okay. We also have, I see South Dakota, that streaming is on. And very good. I see Scott and Corey as well. Because
Good
meetings,
morning, Vice
Oh,
Chair
sorry.
Sandvig. Grace Beck, registered lobbyist for the Board of Technical Education, also on, as is my coworker Chad Peterson.
Thank you, Grace and Chad. And I also see Kendra just joined from Western Dakota. Good morning. Because the meeting's held virtually, Scott will be doing all roll call votes. And with that, we'll dive right in, talking about the agenda that Nick said had been sent out. I don't know if there's anything that needs to be added, subtracted, or modified. If there's not, we'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Greenway, so move.
Second, Sabers.
Go ahead, Scott.
Dover,
Present. Sorry about that. Had to turn on my microphone. Thank you.
Greenway,
Yes.
Law,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Sabers,
Yes.
Sandvig,
Yes.
Schallenkamp,
Yes.
and Stuckey.
Yes.
Thank you, Scott. We also have 2 meeting minutes that are included that we need to take action on today. The first is December 2nd. Is there a motion to approve the December 2nd meeting minutes?
Nelson moves.
Law seconds.
Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Dover,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Law,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Sabers,
Yes.
Sandvig,
Yes.
Schallenkamp,
Yes.
and Stuckey.
Yes.
8 ayes.
Second set of minutes that were included was January 23rd, 26. It was a special meeting that we held remotely. Is there a motion to approve those minutes as were presented?
Schallenkamp moves.
Stuckey seconds.
Thank you, Scott.
Dover,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Law,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Nelson, Sabers,
Yes.
Sandvig,
Yes.
Schallenkamp,
Yes.
and Stuckey.
Yes.
8 ayes.
Thanks. Also, standard practice is that we want to make sure we get all or any conflicts declared on the upfront of the meeting. There were no waivers received prior to the meeting, but would take this time for any board members to recognize a potential conflict based on the agenda that's been approved that they may have. If so, should declare it now. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. At every one of our meetings, we want to make sure that we provide time for any public comment, any opportunity for members of the public or anyone else here that they would want to make a comment outside of our agenda items. Okay, hearing none. The next item on the agenda is for reports, and we've got our executive director report, but we'll turn it over to Nick.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Sandvig. I don't have a long report. We'll be doing a wrap up of the 2026 legislative session in a few moments with Grace, and I won't provide any highlights that I know she'll be intending on discussing during that review. One thing I wanted to note is we'll be convening in person for our regular board meeting on May 21st. And it's been a while since we've had an opportunity to convene in an official meeting in person. So I wanted to make sure that's on everyone's docket. We'll be on the campus of Mitchell Technical College in Mitchell on May 21st. And at that meeting, we'll also be setting our meeting calendar for the upcoming year. And so we're sort of working behind the scenes now to confirm locations and dates. But I know some of you may be wondering, after May, what dates should be circled on your calendar, and we've not affirmed those for the coming year just yet. And so we'll do that together at that May 21st meeting in Mitchell. So if you're looking for those on your calendar, they'll be coming soon. That's all I've got.
Okay, short and sweet. Well done. We'll turn it over to Grace from the Redstone Law Firm. Grace will provide us with a legislative session review, and looking forward to getting your thoughts, Grace.
All right. It already feels like the legislative session wrapped up a while ago, but in reality, it just wrapped up on March 12th. And just a quick reminder, going into this legislative session, we had 64 Republicans serving in the House and 6 Democrats, 32 Republicans in the Senate and 3 Democrats. So that was the makeup going into the year. There were 571 bills introduced. That was the highest number of bill introductions since 1998. It was also the highest number of bills that have ever been withdrawn, which was 51. And I mentioned the breakdown of each chamber just to highlight that when you have this type of supermajority, which we're seeing in the Republican Party in each chamber right now, you start seeing breakdowns and different factions. And we definitely saw that this year. Especially in the Senate, there was a very equal divide. They had a member that was out for health concerns all of the legislative session. So there was a lot of drama over there, a lot of tied votes, a lot of debate about whether or not the lieutenant governor could break tie votes. And at the end of the day, the Supreme Court said yes, he could. And then over in the House, really what you ended up seeing was 2 main factions, one being what I would maybe say is the far right, and the other being more the Chamber of Commerce Republican types. That breakdown was fairly even, with a couple people flipping either way. But more often than not, we saw the 6 Democrats siding with more of the Chamber of Commerce Republicans. So we saw a lot of like 41-23 type of votes. We also saw a lot of absences this year. I haven't had an opportunity to run the numbers in entirety in the Senate, but in the House, every single floor vote averaged 3.5 missing members, which is pretty high. So almost every day there were 2 to 5 members absent, with a couple days there being as many as 7 to 8 legislators gone. I already mentioned that there was a Senate member that was gone for the entirety of session due to his health. There was also a House member that was gone for the entirety of session due to serving in the military overseas. So some of those things are a bit unavoidable, but it was certainly noteworthy, because when you have that many absences, it's very difficult, as President Sanderson will tell you, to get a 2/3 vote. In fact, the day that the Lake Area Tech funding bill came up for a vote in the House, there were actually 5 members absent. When you're missing 5 folks to start with, those are no votes. So it makes getting to that 47 number pretty difficult. There were a couple things we saw less of during session than I anticipated. I thought there would be a lot more jockeying for, focus or support amongst the different gubernatorial camps. And I think that if you were watching with a close eye, you would certainly have been able to identify some block voting and some patterns about, how issues were breaking down based on who supported who. But I don't think that the average onlooker likely would have been able to pick up on it. I just expected that to be, like I said, more overt. Is there anything kind of generally, Chad, that you want to add on to that? Chad also worked on all of our tech school issues with me and Pierre this legislative session.
No, I mean, I think being my first session, it was great. The tech schools are pretty favorable amongst both chambers, which was nice. They're pretty open, receptive to them. I would say there was a lot of bills we might have gotten pulled into inadvertently. I think that was like the biggest surprise where Grace and I would have to go talk to members and ask them, did you mean to include the tech schools? And it was, I think 95% of the time, no. And that was a big surprise to me, just, coming first time. But no, to Grace's point, I feel like our issue stayed out of the trenches, I guess, for lack of a better term, of the fights between personality and that stuff, and which was nice overall. So kind of some broad views, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chad and I have some plans going forward about ways that we could not get accidentally drafted into every single bill that impacts K-12 education. So that's something we can talk about moving forward. Just kind of the session as a whole, there were a lot of bills. I think it averaged about 8% more bills died this year than is typical. I think, you usually see about 50% pass rate. This year there was a 58% kill rate roughly. So there was definitely a lot of ideas out there, and the members didn't seem to think that all of them were good. At the end of the day, there was a 1.4% increase for the big three, being state employees, healthcare providers, and K-12 education. There were two pieces of legislation passed that could lead to property tax relief, which was a big issue this legislative session, with nearly 50 bills being filed on the topic. Then more specifically to tech schools, of course, we saw Senate Bill 79, the $6 million in funding for the James Abner Center pass. And I want to thank all of you for the contacts that you made in helping get this one across the finish line. Just with the different personalities in the legislature right now, we're seeing that having industry folks reach out, community members reach out, and of course the president's, that's especially impactful, and appreciate all of the support. Then, unfortunately, House Bill 1202, the Lake Area Technical College funding bill, did not make it. We knew it was going to be a bit of an uphill battle to get it across the finish line. But, President Sanderson and I certainly gave it our all, especially President Sanderson. And, the way that they rank their funding priorities in caucus is, not something that they really share a lot about, but we do believe that there was a concerted effort to rank this project last by a number of members, not because they oppose Lake Area Technical College in any way, but because they only wanted to support one technical school project, unfortunately. And then, of course, we received both the equipment funding and M&R funding in the budget amendment. I think that, there is certainly a desire to go back to, doing that in a more traditional manner, especially the M&R funding. And, we asked for equipment funding as our budget requests. And if there is ever dollars available, hopefully that will come to fruition someday. And then the last bill that really overtly impacted us was House Bill 1279. Representative Mortensen brought this legislation, and it would have allowed our colleges to negotiate with BHR about joining the state health plan. It was really a bill that would have opened the door to the conversation. It wouldn't have mandated that the colleges join, nor would it have mandated that BHR allow them to join. The proposal went through the House Education Committee and then the House Appropriations Committee. It passed almost unanimously off of the House floor and then did not make it out of the Senate. There was some thought that it was just going to be a slippery slope and would be opening the door for other entities that wanted to join the state health plan. It was unfortunate because I very much appreciated Representative Mortensen bringing the legislation and recognized that it might have been something that Western Dakota Tech especially would have perhaps wanted to immediately explore. But all that being said, I did not get the sense that even if it would have passed, I don't know that we would have found favorable terms with BHR in the near future to get it done. But like I said, I really appreciate Representative Mortensen bringing the legislation. It was the final and last bill he ever pitched as a legislator, excuse me, and he is not running for re-election. So I think that he probably advocated for us every single day he served in the legislature, which is certainly something to be said. And I hope all of the new legislators that are elected take on that role as well. I'd love to have more advocates like Representative Mortensen. Anything else specific to the tech school legislation, Chad?
No, I mean, Voida's drone bill was an interesting one to allocate money. We stayed out of it because the Department of Transportation was against it pretty adamantly, I would say, and the administration. Essentially, they would have sent the drone tax to tech school funding. It would have been for drone programs at tech schools, which we didn't know about the bill until it was dropped. So that was kind of a unique one, and we stayed out of it. I think other than that,
yes. Yeah, that bill made it through the Senate and ended up dying over in the House, but that's right. It was a bill that would have redirected funds from drone licensing from the Aeronautics Commission to technical colleges that had agricultural programs that utilized drones. We were watching it and certainly interested and appreciate anytime anyone wants to give the technical colleges additional funding. There was also a bill that was intended to impact state-owned airplanes, which we ended up exempted from, even though I believe that the school district owns the aircrafts that Lake Area Tech, and I'm not sure that any of the other colleges have aeronautics programs, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, all of that goes to the point that Chad made earlier. There were a lot of bills that we were drawn into that weren't intended to impact us. But that's kind of the highlights of the legislative session. There were a lot of bills died. We didn't get everything we asked for, but one thing I learned when I worked in Governor Dugard's office is you don't get anything if you don't ask for it. So we made our best run at it, and we still came out with the money for the Abner Center. So all in all, it was a fairly successful session for the technical colleges, and happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Good summary. Any questions for Grace or Chad?
I'm sure that Nick really misses coming to Pier. I think he was here every week of the legislative session, so we certainly appreciated that. But if it's not one thing, it's another.
Well, we appreciate your guys' efforts on our behalf. I think our track record has been one that is enviable from all sides standpoint. We are well regarded. I don't know if I shared with this full group when we were there for the kickoff, the meal at Drifters after first day of session. Somebody from another lobbyist, I saw him in the Capitol, and they said, "What are you here for?" And I said, "Well, we're here for Board of Tech Ed deal tonight." And they're like, "Oh, Board of Tech Ed, you guys get whatever you guys ask for." So obviously that doesn't happen unless you are, purposeful and professional and, staying within the lanes or within the box of appropriate asks as well. So thanks for your work, Grace and Chad. Any other questions on that? Okay, here none. The kind of the one action item we do have for today now is the next item, which is tuition and fee setting. I'll turn it over to Nick to give us an overview of the proposal. We can have some discussion afterwards. Ultimately, we want to be leaving the meeting here today approving setting some tuition and fees. Nick?
Thank you, Vice Chairman Sandvig. As you noted, our primary purpose for today is to set state level tuition and fees for academic year 2026-2027. We always consider this tuition and fee setting proposal at our first regular meeting after the legislative session. That gives us a sense of our state appropriation for the coming year and allows me to work with our presidents to develop a recommendation around a potential increase to tuition and fees for the following year. And so if you'll allow me just a moment here, I'm going to share my screen so you all can see the tuition and fee setting proposal. If you have not accessed it in the agenda documents, it should be on your screen now. I want to make sure we're all looking at the same document together. This tuition and fee setting proposal, of course, outlines our proposed recommendation for the coming academic year. I did want to note that under the board's purview is the setting of the state tuition rate, the facility fee, and the M&R fee. So those are the only elements of the overall cost to student that would be considered in this proposal. I'll try to highlight our recommended approach in those three areas. One of the things we try to provide you as you consider our recommendation are a couple of other considerations, both from a revenue perspective and an expenditure perspective for the coming year. And so much of this is forecasted, but of course, in large part, those revenue impacts are based on what we know to be true of our state appropriation for FY27, which was just approved during the 2026 legislative session. As Grace noted during her report, our per student allocation received a 1.4% inflationary rate increase. That's a bit better scenario than the recommended budget included, but a bit smaller rate increase than we have been used to in recent years. And so I've tried to highlight for you what that would mean for the per student allocation, which is how we receive the lion's share of our state appropriation. This would be an increase of approximately $500,000 in funding in FY27. We also try to track enrollment patterns, so we sort of have a sense of what our enrollment is going to look like in the coming year. Of course, this is all forecasted, but based on enrollment in the current academic year, we anticipate that our FY26 FTE number will once again top 6,000 full-time equivalent students, and that's based on credits collected across the system. Grace had noted an increase that we're set to receive in FY27 in maintenance and repair funding. So that maintenance and repair funding in FY27 will top $2.7 million, which is an increase of close to $1 million from FY26. We'll also receive one-time equipment funding. All of that I wanted to highlight as you consider revenue impacts. Something else you'll see reflected in the recommendation on page 2 is that tuition assistance line item. For more than a decade now, we've received $10 per credit hour in tuition assistance from the state. That's a direct benefit to students, and you'll see that applied in our recommendation table on page 2. Many of those revenue impacts are offset by anticipated expenditure impacts. You all know that there have been inflationary increases over the last couple of years in a variety of areas. I think some of our institutions have been impacted most heavily by increases in insurance premiums, both for health coverage for employees, but also for property insurance. The cost of utilities, maintaining our existing facilities and equipment and supplies have continued to increase as well. We try to capture some of that in the inflationary rate increase that's applied to the per student allocation, but some of that we have to capture in potential revenue increases through tuition and fees. You can see sort of projected salary expense increases over the next year that I collected from the presidents that inform the recommendation as well, and M&R projects throughout the system over the next year that are high priority. I'll move on then to page 2, which really breaks down our proposed state tuition and fee rates for the coming academic year. Table 1 breaks down the 3 areas, and column 2 in table 1 really looks at the rate to students per credit hour. So the first number we'll ask for you to consider is the state tuition rate. The rate to students is $134 is our recommendation, which would be a $4 increase. I should note that that number would be $144 if not for the $10 per credit hour tuition assistance program, which allows us to defray the overall tuition rate by $10 per credit. So last year, or in the current academic year, we had a rate to students of $130 per credit hour in state tuition. We're proposing a $4 per credit hour increase to the state tuition rate, which would bring the rate to students up to $134. The 2 fees that would be set at a state level and that we ask for the board's approval on are the facility fee, which has been $36 per credit hour for a number of years, and we're not requesting an increase to the facility fee. The revenue generated from the facility fee paid by students should cover 73% of our annual debt service total. This is related to the bond debt that the system holds. That revenue doesn't need to just cover our annual debt service, but we need to have revenues that would be total to 103% of our annual obligation so that our debt service coverage ratio remains at 1.03. That's noted in the description in table 1. That gives you kind of an overview of how we think about the facility fee and the revenue generated from that $36 per credit hour facility fee. In the coming academic year, we're proposing no increase to the facility fee. The second fee that the board oversees is the M&R fee. We're also requesting no increase to the M&R fee. These dollars are designed to cover the ongoing maintenance and repair of facilities and spaces throughout the system, designed to be matched by state investments as well. And you saw the state M&R appropriation of just over $2.7 million for FY27. So we'll be generating $8 per credit hour in M&R. And I can tell you that locally, our institutions are investing these M&R dollars in those ongoing projects and some additional dollars where needed as well. So in total, between the state tuition rate, the facility fee, and the M&R fee, the overall rate to students for state level tuition and fees for the next academic year is recommended at $178 per credit hour. In table 2 at the bottom of page 2, I've provided a history of state level tuition and fees so you can sort of see where we've been in recent fiscal or academic years. In FY26, we did increase both the tuition rate and the M&R fee. And in FY27, we're recommending a $4 per credit hour increase to the tuition rate, but a level facility and M&R fee. With that, I would stand by for any questions or discussion.
What questions does the group have for Nick?
I had a question, Nick. This is Jim Dover.
Yeah.
So Nick, and since I'm newer on the board, then apologize if I'm out of sequence on process for approvals. When do the budgets come forward? Because we're trying to set a fee or a revenue level, but I don't see the budget impact in that the total budgets. The only material I have is from the board meeting in November. System total FY26 budgeted ended up being kind of a net at the end of the day of 1 million positive operations. But what does this do to then the planned budget? Does that come later, or I feel like we're setting fee levels without having the budgets to come along with it to see the impact. So please educate me for a moment. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, Board Member Dover. And I do think it's a reality of our current shared governance model. Our board does not have a budget setting authority. So the budgets that our presidents produce at a local level is set at their local level by their local LEAs. Our responsibility is to set state level tuition and fees. We try to give you some sense of what revenue and expenditures are influencing the recommendations as of today. As those budgets are set, we have kind of ongoing conversation around what that means locally. And then we ensure that the board during our annual planning retreat gets an opportunity to sort of understand their existing budgets and budget history. But we do not have an opportunity to necessarily take action on their budgets. So that would not happen in a calendar year for us. It's not a part of our responsibility.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
No, good question.
Nick,
James,
Danny Law.
James, if you're like me, you'll ask that same question for at least one more year, if not two, before it sets in. That's how long it took me to understand.
Yeah, I just think it creates a situation for our board presidents and the local school districts. I mean, we're setting the revenue now, then they have to live with it, and then they got to go figure out their budget. And it seems like, informing this could be too much or too little from a revenue standpoint. We're sensitive to the impact on the students directly. It's a 2.25% increase on out-of-pocket expenditures by the students in terms of their costs. So I feel good about it's only 2.25%, but at the same breath, I have no idea what that's going to do to the budgets in terms of the local technical schools.
Right.
And
of course.
So I think it's out of sequence entirely, but I can't change it. So thank you for explaining it to me.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out where our authority begins and ends, and that authority, fiduciary wise, is at the local level. Ours is a pass through to some extent. Any other questions for Nick on this?
Nick, this is Kay. I think I heard you say that the facility fee and the M&R fee revenues do not cover the needs, and the campuses make those areas whole through other sources of funding. Is that correct?
Board Member Schallenkamp, the facility fee covers our need, where we generate enough revenue in the facility fee to cover what is designed to be 73% of our annual obligation. The remaining 27% is covered through a state appropriation. So facility fee covers our needs. The M&R fee, it sort of depends on what types of large projects the campuses are undertaking. There are instances where a combination of this $8 per credit hour in the M&R fee, plus what they receive in a state appropriation, perhaps doesn't cover a large project if they have a roofing project or they are doing some work in a parking lot or some really large scale projects. They may have to kick in some additional local dollars to cover. As you can imagine with M&R, that's not a firm number every year. It's sort of project driven. And so campuses have to make some local level decisions whether or not their $8 in the M&R fee is going to cover everything, or if they're going to have to find some other local resources to cover some of those bigger projects.
Thank you. My thought on that is by keeping it level, are we jeopardizing the integrity of the funds in that I always felt it better to increase just slightly so that there wasn't a time when you'd have to do a $2 increase or something that would really grab the attention of students, parents, legislators, that wow, that's a big increase rather than a slight increase each year. Can you help me understand why we don't do that?
I think that's a really astute observation and certainly something we've discussed in the president's group is taking an incremental approach to some of the fee increases versus having to take a big bite in 1 year. And we had discussed potentially taking an incremental approach to an M&R fee increase if we felt we needed to. One of the reasons we aren't recommending that this year is because we're receiving almost $1 million in additional funding from the state for M&R in FY27. In the last 2 years, those M&R dollars have come to us in sort of unique ways. We've gotten some of the M&R funding from ongoing funding, which was a typical pattern, but we've also received some of those dollars through one-time funding or a budget amendment. And that's a bit irregular and isn't quite as consistent as the ongoing funding we've been used to. And so I think we're sort of curious to see in FY28 as we prepare for the next budget cycle if we'll return to some norms in the way M&R funding is distributed and we can do some more long-term planning in terms of our own fees and our own long-term plans. But we felt like this year, in a year where we're receiving almost $1 million in additional state funding in M&R, it was probably a year to keep that fee level.
Makes
But
sense.
we had conversation around in all of these areas, how do we take an incremental approach versus one big bite in a year where we might feel like our backs are against the wall?
Okay, thank you.
Good questions. What other questions does the group have for Nick? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 27 student fees and or tuition and state fees as presented.
Law so moves.
Second, Sabers.
Thank you. Discussion. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Scott, you want to go through roll call?
Dover,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Law,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Sabers,
Yes.
Sandvig,
Yes.
Schallenkamp,
Yes.
and Stuckey.
Yes.
8 ayes.
Okay, good. Nick, anything else on this topic?
Thank you for your support. I do want to let you know that we try to be very thoughtful as we approach tuition and fee setting. We understand, of course, it's a pressure point for students and families. We understand the board has tried to be really thoughtful in our approach to tuition and fee setting and overall affordability for students and families in the state. And so we really try to look at any of these areas as, you know, what is the necessary revenue generation we need to maintain high academic quality while not overburdening our students and families. And so we appreciate your thoughtful consideration. And I want you to know our conversation leading up to today is sort of trying to hit that sweet spot of affordability, but still continuing to invest in our programs. So thank you for your support.
Thanks, Nick. Next item we have on the agenda is the 26 spring enrollment report, and I believe Jenna is going to walk us through this information. Is that correct?
That's correct. I have a little slide presentation, so I'm going to share my screen here and we can get started. All right. Okay. So last October, we shared the updated enrollment reporting method with you all and talked about our new format that we developed with our institutional effectiveness task force. So before I jumped into the data today, I just wanted to recap that process with you all. Just a few housekeeping notes here. I'm using a PowerPoint for the presentation today for the recap and to provide some data highlights, but I did include corresponding page numbers at the bottom of the slides, just in case you're following along with that report that we provided online. So to refresh, the goal of our new report method was to better tell the story of our students beyond just those total numbers. So now we are starting to look at characteristics like age, residency, enrollment information, whether a student was a former dual enrollment student in our system, or what their intensity is. Are they full-time? Are they part-time? And we're looking at other factors such as Build Dakota Scholarship recipients, first-generation students, and Pell eligibility. Really, the biggest change is that our campuses now submit disaggregated data, which allows us to just more closely look at student characteristics and their trends over time. We do note the differences between the old report and the new report on this slide here. In short, that old report gave us totals, where this new report can give us insight into who our students really are. Our goal hasn't changed, however, we're still sharing enrollment data, but now we just have a better ability to understand and communicate our student population, including our degree-seeking students and their characteristics, some of which I plan to share with you today. So now to talk a little bit about this year's report that was provided to you. While the format for collecting the data is new and different, the methodology of the report still remains the same. This is still an unduplicated headcount, meaning each student is counted once in our numbers, regardless of how many classes they take. And it's also a spring to spring comparison, which gives us a more accurate look at the trends that I'll share over time. So page 1 of that report still includes background information and some key definitions. Now, pages 2 through 5 likely look very familiar to you. These focus on enrollment at the career cluster level, much like what we've reported to you in past springs. To highlight, overall, the system grew by 160 students, or 2.2% this spring. Health sciences and dual enrollment, like you see here, remain our largest career clusters. You can see those breakdowns both on page 3, or on page 2 and page 3. And then on pages 4 and 5, you can see the career cluster totals for each of our campuses. So like I had mentioned, one of the goals of this format was to better identify our degree-seeking students and their trends. So as you can see in this slide here, the students in green are our degree-seeking students. So both historically and today, they have remained the largest portion of our enrollment. So these students drove much of this year's growth, increasing by 192 students this spring, or around 3.5% system-wide. Next, I thought I would highlight transfer students, or those students who may have previously attended another institution. System-wide transfer students make up 39% of our degree-seeking students this spring, as you can see in blue, and that share has remained fairly consistent over the last 5 years. So the majority of our students system-wide are first-time students, as you can see in the orange here. But I do want to note some differences across campuses, however. If you take a closer look at page 8 of the report, you'll notice both Southeast Tech and Western Dakota Tech serve a higher percentage of transfer students, while Lake Area Tech and Mitchell Tech serve more of our first-time students. Now we look at age of our degree-seeking students. About 70% of this year's students, as shown in orange here, are in the ages between 18 and 24. It's interesting that this share has grown slightly over the last 5 years, but we do also continue to see participation from adult learners, especially at Western Dakota Tech and Southeast Tech, as you can see on page 10 of the report. Now, these are the same campuses with the higher transfer student populations, so this kind of suggests a relationship between student type and age. Campuses serving more transfer students also tend to serve more adult learners, while campuses with more first-time students primarily serve more traditional age students. And while the system primarily serves our traditional age students, non-traditional students, as seen in green and blue here, still have been and remain an important part of our community. Now, this slide here just highlights race and ethnicity across our degree-seeking student population for the spring. Overall, our students do remain majority white, but if you review the historical numbers on page 12 of the report, you'll see we have had gradual increases in diversity. And then last, we do continue to track dual enrollment, as you know, and that remains an important part of our system. But now we are able to look more closely at those students. So one of the things I wanted to show here was we can now break down their credit load and see that most of our dual enrollment students are here in the orange, and they're taking 5 or fewer credits. So that usually equals about 1 class a semester. Our next largest group is in green, as you can see, and those students are taking 6 to 11 credits, or probably about 2 courses. So I think this is just the right balance for those high school students. It's giving them an opportunity to take college level credit while they're still in high school. So to wrap up here, walking through the data pieces today, I think gives us a little bit of a clearer picture as to who our students are and how they are engaging in our campuses, and also highlight some differences amongst the 4 of us. This is really, I think, just the beginning of what we can do. Our team and our campus representatives on our task force are really excited to see what the data will show us in future reporting. So with that, I think my team and our campuses are happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jenna. I thought I'm a visual guy, and that the way you had it presented was very easy to understand and see what was happening or wasn't happening from year to year. Any questions, comments on what Jenna just presented?
Jenna, Denny Law, I just more of a comment than anything, but also pass along my appreciation to you and the board and the board presidents, or the school presidents, rather, in regards to the demographic breakdown. I spent a lot of time looking through this, and the breakdown, both in terms of the age demographics. The transfer was something I probably hadn't fully considered, and the impacts on various schools and what that might mean. And then the ability to see the different career clusters or with the historical. The 1-year looks are great, but the historical and the 5-year look back, I think, really tell some interesting trends, both in terms of where we are today as well as where we may need to be in the future. So I thoroughly enjoy and appreciate information like this, and my appreciation to you as well as to each of the campuses for preparing it. I'm sure it wasn't just a quick data dump. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gary Sabers here. I would oppose this to Jenna or any of the presidents. Were there any interesting trends there that are worthy to note that any of the presidents would like to discuss? I guess that's good if there's no concerns.
It is, for me, it's been interesting, and I don't know if fun is the right word, just to see the differences between our campuses and throw some percentages in there to see what the numbers look like. So it's been fun to see just the differences and then how it all pulls together on a system level analysis too. So excited to see what other data pieces we can pull together in the future.
Board Member Sabers, I think I am struck by the information on page 2 in the report on the boards and commissions site, just to watch the growth in healthcare enrollments over time. There are certain industries that I would give a lot of kudos to regarding their engagement in workforce development, and the healthcare industry is definitely one of those industries that has fully embraced that they have a role and responsibility in helping to support students through their education into career paths. And I think that though the need is not completely met, they're continuing to see progress on that front. And my thought to other industries that are maybe seeing enrollments decreasing in their pathways, take a page from the healthcare book, take a page from the diesel industry, where over time, those enrollments have been directly in alignment with employer engagement.
President Sanderson, I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I noticed as I reflected on it too. As you know, part of my day job is in the health science industry, and I plan on sharing this information with leaders in my organization. It really reflects the work, or that partnership between industry and the technical schools, and it has made an impact. You're right, there's more room to go, but this shows it's working.
Great call.
Maybe
out.
one note that I would make is, and we'll continue to refine this information and dig in deeper to understand more unique characteristics of our students. But I think one of the reasons we think it's important to continue to bring a spring enrollment report to you all is because we want to gain a better understanding of the entry points of our institution. And there's lots of students that are spring starts. I think we so often think about a traditional academic year, what that cycle looks like for lots of traditional students that are ready to enroll in late August and move through a fall followed by a spring semester. But there's a lot of students in our system that don't start with us until January, and their entry points and the support services they need from our institutions may look different than that traditional pathway. So I think understanding spring starts and what that trend line looks like helps us understand the supports that our campuses have to provide students that are mid-year starters.
I would reinforce what Denny had said earlier. I know in the past, some of the evolution of this has been just getting the data in a similar format from the schools and in a timely manner. And you know, the reports and this type of dialogue can only, you know, garbage in, garbage out. You can only have some meaningful dialogue, and if time is spent on making sure it's, you know, appropriately compared on the upfront and everything. So thanks for all the work that goes to it. And often these reports we found, you don't even understand the value today. It may be 1, 2, or 3 years from now when an opportunity is presenting itself, as President Sanderson was saying, with a business partner being able to show what others have done. So there's a lot of work that goes into making something like this. And look, here's the other thing I've learned, at least in our business, is the if-then rule, because then here's what happens. Well, if we can put awesome information together like this, then there's like 3 other things we'd like you to do as well in a similar format. That's what makes us better, but stand by, Jenna. I bet there's more requests coming.
Thank
Under
you.
that yeah, and under that category, Brian, of more requests, has there been any analysis done of the transfer in completion rate of a degree versus those who are single start? I don't know what the right term is, but you know, for those who are transfer in, then ultimately what is their degree completion rate versus those who were new starts?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Not on the system level. Our new enrollment report format was phase 1, and we are working on a new completion template format with that same institutional effectiveness task force. So yeah, that's one of our goals, is to tell that story from entry, persistence, and completion. So
Great.
More
Thank you.
to come. Yes.
Love it. Anything else on this? Okay, hearing none. We've got the non-substantive program applications as agenda item number 10. Looks like we have 3 of them here, and I believe Scott's going to walk us through these. Is that correct?
I'll just provide a brief overview, and then I'll turn it over to leadership at Mitchell to walk us through each application. So non-substantive program applications are more minor changes to academic programs that still require BOTE consideration, whether that's through the executive director or the full board. If it's through the executive director and the ED approves, then they're listed on our board agendas as informational items, which are the 3 applications on today's. So these we won't take a formal vote, but I'll turn it over to leadership at Mitchell. They'll walk through each application individually, stand by for any questions, and then transition to the next application. So thanks.
I'm just going to kickstart this. I brought someone along to speak to this better than I can because that's his area. Scott Fossum, our Vice President for Academics. All 3 of these are chances and opportunities for students to complete in a little different way. The goal is to produce completers, and for some that makes a difference on their track, but it's also industry informing us that they need them with different skills or shorter term training or what it is. So these are opportunities on both ends. And so I'll let Scott walk through these, and we're just going to go from one right to the other. So if you have any questions, please butt in. Scott loves it when we interrupt him, so I appreciate that. So Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Teresa. The first one I would like to take a look at is our machining and manufacturing diploma. This is a subset of our current welding program. As with all of the non-substantive program applications, this came from our advisory board. In visiting with them, there's a need for more people into the machining and manufacturing piece a little bit quicker. And so by moving this into a diploma option for our students, they still can stack this with the welding technology piece and get an associate's degree, but they can also leave after one semester and with a machining and manufacturing and be able to head out into industry a little bit quicker with all that. So we've seen more students who are interested more in the machining side of things, and some would like to go just through that. Some, once they go through that, they go, hey, I might as well get the welding when I'm here. But this has been our kind of answer to some of those requests that we've heard from business and industry and students. Any questions on this one? All right.
Go ahead on to the next.
Sounds great. Our medical office professional diploma. This has been an associate's degree program. In looking at our student data, one of the biggest hurdles for the students was the internship piece that they would need to have during their second year. The students in this program are mostly online. They are working full-time typically, and so to give up a full-time job for an unpaid internship was not really possible for them. So in working with our advisory board and talking with them, we look to take the curriculum into 3 semesters then, so a 1-year program, and then we have eliminated the internship piece. We were trying to give them a little bit more of the hands-on piece, the workplace learning pieces in their coursework, and we aren't getting rid of anything as far as the knowledge base goes, but we are eliminating the internship. And with some of the people who are coming into the program, some of the incoming students, that has been definitely a draw, because like I said, as we looked at our data and our completers, that's where we would end up losing them as they went into the internship piece. So this is a way to kind of respond to that and make sure they still have the skills necessary to head into the workforce after they finish with their diploma. We're also looking at ways that we can stack this with some other medical programs that are diploma options. And so if a student would want to come back and get their associate's degree, we could make those things possible too. And so that's some other pieces we're looking at. Any questions or thoughts on the medical office?
Do you want questions now, or just go through all the 3 programs you proposed changing and then come back and take it? Because I do have some comments on this one.
Yeah, let's stay on this one. Go ahead and ask questions here.
So I support the change. I would just caution the school that we are probably underestimating the impact. Let me rephrase it. Please consider the impact of artificial intelligence as it impacts. When I looked at the core curriculum, pathophysiology, yeah, that makes sense. Coding, the 3 major health systems in the state are all on Epic. We'll be the last to join. Has over 100 AI algorithms within Epic, and it's growing exponentially each year. And so the areas of coding, billing, etc., I see those as being subject to heavy influence by AI. So you just might want to take that into account, both in your syllabus and also in terms of your estimates of student enrollment in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. I was at the Higher Learning Commission meeting this conference this week, our accrediting body, and attended a couple sessions on AI, and it's very interesting to see how that is how we need to continue to integrate that into all of our curriculum areas. including the healthcare, and because of its application, and we need to make sure that our students are able to have the knowledge to work with it, but also are working with it correctly and ethically too along the way. But
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we consider that as well.
Yeah, as an example, in curriculum, you have transcription. Maybe I misread that. There is not going to be any transcription in the future. It's all done currently through ambient listening and AI. And so, so it's already there. And so again, support the change. And I think it's a smart move. Back to you.
All right, thank you.
Great comments. Any other comments on medical office professional? Okay, hearing none, let's go on to the third one, Wi-Fi
right.
and broadband.
Yeah, our Wi-Fi and broadband technology program. Throughout the course of this program, for a long time, we've had the kind of the outside plant and the inside plant curriculum intertwined throughout the first and second years. In visiting with our advisory board and business and industry, we are now in the we're not in the process. We're now going to have outside plan as more of the first year and inside plan as more of the second year. This is a Build Dakota program, so I do see a lot of our students taking both years still with all that, especially if they're the Build Dakota students. But we do have some students who are interested in just more of the outside plant, and they will come and they can then graduate 1 year with their diploma. And we do have some business and industry in especially the Mitchell area who are looking for some folks with those skills. And so we'll be able to help with the workforce there, also get some students into those areas. Plus they'll have a foundation if they want to continue on or they want to come back and stack that degree and get that second year and get their associates, all possibilities for them that way. So basically with this program, we've just taken the curriculum, and instead of integrating it throughout year 1 and 2, we now just have outside planning year 1 for a diploma, and then they can come back for the inside plant for the second year for your associate's degree. Any questions?
Makes sense. Any questions? We require no action on this. This is informational. But again, as the feedback on the second item here, this is why we want to make sure that we're capturing any questions, comments, or observations from the board. Any of those on any of the three programs we just discussed?
I think in general, Terry Sabers here, I would add that, I think it's great that we responded to industry to get these people the basic skills, because a number of these businesses have things they want done their way, and they will handle them from there on out. So I think it's a good move. It's to give our students an option. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, we're getting to the end of the meeting where we'll typically do our go around. We'll ask each of the college presidents to give an update, how things are going as we sit here at the end of March in 2026. And it looks like President Sanderson, we have you queued up first.
You bet. Thank you. First, want to just share my gratitude with all of you on the board, and to Grace and Chad and Nick for all the efforts that went into moving House Bill 1202 forward. We talked about that quite a bit in the legislative update, but are hopeful we can continue down the path of seeking funding. In the community here, I've talked about, even though the funding didn't come together this year in the legislature for the trade center, which would add HVAC, industrial refrigeration, and water treatment here at Lake Area Tech, the need in industry still exists. And so we're continuing down the path of how can we bring those facilities to life. So we've got the technical lab spaces to bring those programs on campus. So thank you very much for all the efforts that went into supporting that and reaching out to legislators. A couple of highlights to share with you related to our report. Yesterday, we were able to release news that Lake Area Tech was named as a gold status military-friendly school for the 26-27 school year. And this is over a dozen years that Lake Area Tech has been recognized as a military-friendly school. We take a lot of pride in that. What that boils down to is that the outcomes for our military-connected students, whether that's veteran student, someone who's in active duty, or their family members, the outcomes for those folks are the same as our general population of students. And that speaks highly to our faculty and staff and the work that they do day in and day out to support all of our students and really focus on success across our student body. So excited to share that news with you. You'll see in our report that we had a couple of things related to program quality. We had 2 site visits in March, one for our nursing program and one for the dental hygiene program. They were accreditation visits, which make sure that we're holding true to the requirements for those programs. We had very positive feedback from the reviewers in both of those visits. The process takes a while. We won't get final notification on the nursing front until this fall. We expect final notification on our official status for dental hygiene at the end of July. But very proud of our staff for the work that they've done to make sure our students have good outcomes in our existing nursing programs and that our dental hygiene program is teed up to provide success for our students as well. That one has been a big lift. So we're glad to have it behind us and looking ahead now to enrolling students. The other program quality piece that is a really important move for our Associate of Social Work program. Recently, the South Dakota Board of Social Work Examiners approved our program to meet licensure qualifications. So now the graduates from Lake Area Tech's Associate of Social Work program will be able to earn their licensure to become licensed social work associates. Most of you are familiar that we really made big changes to that program, better aligned with what's going on in industry now in the professional track, and those changes went into effect this year. So our first graduates will have the ability to become licensed in their field. A couple of other quick notes. We started a new program for dual credit to support low-income students in pursuing dual credits while they're a junior or senior in high school. So if students are eligible for free or reduced lunches in their local high school and qualify for dual credit enrollment, our foundation is now helping to provide funds for those students to take dual credits, and really appreciate the foundation board's action to move that forward. For the 38th year, our financial services program offered free tax prep through the VITA IRS tax program. This year, our second year financial services students in the accounting track served 531 folks in just a short period of time, couple of months, helping them to file their tax returns. And so those students have to sit for licensure qualifications through their advanced tax classes. And they learned very quickly over the course, not only how to prepare tax returns, but working with customers as well. And so it's a great learning experience. A big thanks to the leads in our financial services programs, Lorna Hofer and Carrie Stager, for the love and work that they put into that program every year. Our aviation students just got back. Spring break was last week. There was no rest for the weary in our professional pilot program. They took our entire fleet of airplanes, 10 airplanes, down to Florida and then to Texas to practice maneuvers and flight planning in really heavy air traffic space. And so have had a chance to catch up with students and instructors this week, and it's an impressive learning experience that they went through. The reports have been very, very good. And while they were down there, we had several students choose to take check rides with designated pilot examiners that we're not familiar with. But we had students earn certifications as certified flight instructors and get their instrument ratings. And so that really speaks to not only are our students qualified with the examiners that we know here, but they're able to meet those qualifications in different parts of the country. I think that covers all the notes I was going to share with you. I'll step aside for questions if you have any for me.
Anybody have any questions? I guess I was going to ask the dual credit tuition for free lunch students. How do you communicate that? Is that something they find out about after the fact? Is that something that's shared up front? How is that made known?
It's a great question. Because it was a first round project or availability, our foundation worked directly with school counselors through our dual credit coordinator here to get the word out to students. We also had information up on our website and social media. But now that everybody's kind of got their feet under them as to how the program will work, it'll be a broader release of information as we go into the fall semester.
Thank you. And after 2 years, it becomes the norm and expected. But was just curious about getting that out. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? Lake Area Tech? President Crease, I've got Mitchell Tech up next.
Good morning, everyone. While Lake Area was busy with accreditation visits, which I do not envy one bit, we've been having some fun at Mitchell Tech. We have now signed up and are participating in the collegiate drone racing activity. We have 4 teams that race on a regular basis. It is not what you think. It's very strategic in nature. In fact, one of the teams recruited someone who is ex-military because they wanted that type of strategic thinking on their group because there's quite a bit involved. They've had some mediocre success so far, but are already planning on how they can better that. And it's been a great activity to involve students not only in the drone racing program or in the drone program, but across. And I look for that to expand. That will lead, of course, to esports, which whether you're my age or the age of the people on the board, you kind of wonder why we participate in electronic gaming, but actually there's more to learn in that than just how to win the game. So we're excited to have both of those on, but drone racing was our first adventure and it's been really good. In April, we will have the Collegiate Lineman Rodeo, and this is a rodeo that goes around to different power line programs. This is our year to host it. We will have people from the upper Midwest participating, probably nearly 50 to 75 participants. They will compete in climbing skills, knowledge skills, connection skills. We will have it rain or shine because when you're a power lineman, it does not matter if it's rain or shine. You have to be able to participate in your job no matter what. So it's exciting. We have our senior lineman instructor. This will be his last year, so he's very excited to kind of go out with a bang, so to speak. Hopefully there's no bangs and only good things, but we're excited. We brought hardware home. We're hoping to keep some of that hardware on campus again this year. One of the really exciting things for our precision ag students is they have been participating in the grant, a federal grant called On-Farm Precision Experimentation. And this is a consortial effort where students are actually selected to perform samples and experiments on their home farm or acres that they partner with someone and collect data about different planting structures, different populations, different chemical applications, different fertilizer applications. And then they go each year and present their data at the Agriculture Commodity Classic, and this year it was in San Antonio. So it's an opportunity for them to interface with business and industry. It's an opportunity to share some of their stuff, but what's really great for all of us is that it's an opportunity for us to have research on our campus, which not all community colleges get that opportunity. Many times they go to a 4-year institution for that type of experience. So it was exciting for them. They had lots of things to say. They enjoyed it. And then one young participant said to me, I brought home a whole suitcase full of things that I received free at the Classic. So they had both a good experience from presenting, but also interfacing with industry, which was nice. We've all had our trips to Pierre this year. One of the exciting trips that we had that we thought was exciting is we have a student in our social services program that grew up in the foster system. And this year she went as part of Lutheran Social Services, which is where she had a lot of her advocacy as a student and as a growth and as a youth, and advocated for state funding for children's services. And it was exciting for her to not only practice in the field that she wants to be in, but to advocate from a voice of experience. And so she has a great story, a success story, which you don't often see out of foster care, as much success as she's seen. So it was wonderful to see her do that. And she was featured in several publications across the state because of that. And so we're very proud of her, and she is very excited. She will graduate and to get out and to enter that field and use her personal experience to serve others. So it's always a great feeling to see your students see their obligation not only to become part of a career and a part of the industry, but to also be an advocate and provide services for others. So we appreciated that opportunity and the opportunity for her. And I don't have anything else. I would stand by for questions as well.
Great, hearing none. Let's move on to Southeast Tech. Corey?
All righty. Well, thank you very much. And I just want to start off by echoing what you've heard previously and thanking all of you for your help and your support in the phone calls and the emails and texts that you sent to help get Senate Bill 79 across the finish line and to get that passed. And a huge thank you to Nick and to Grace and to Chad. I know you put in a ton of hours and time, and at least for Chad and Nick, enjoying that wonderful commute between here and Pierre. That is always so much fun this time of year. So I just want to thank all of you for your help. We're excited and appreciative to be able to be trusted with state funding. As you may have seen, Governor Roden and Lieutenant Governor Van Huysen were on campus here on Monday to formally sign Senate Bill 79. So that was great. Thank you also to Jamie and to Denny and to Terry for being here to help us celebrate that signing as well. Our current plan is to do groundbreaking, hopefully in August, probably somewhere right around the beginning of the new academic year. We're working with Senator Thune's office so that he can be here. He wants to be here for that groundbreaking as well, since he helped with the initial investment in that project. So when we have an exact date, we will definitely send that out to you as well, but look for that sometime, probably in mid-August. During spring break, campus continued to be busy. On Monday of spring break week, we hosted the Eastern South Dakota Perkins Consortium, where we brought together representatives from all 36 high schools in the eastern half of the state. To just talk about different Perkins items and topics. And it's always great. They're so focused on helping students that it's nice to have some professional development for them as well. And then on Wednesday of that week, we had our Women in STEM event where we had 1,080 eighth grade girls on campus, and all the energy that brings with it. And to top it off, we also had a water main break in one of our buildings. So we had one building without water, which was designated as a building where we had industry partners who specifically requested that building because they wanted water to help them with their activities, but everybody rolled with it, and it went off very well. And so it's always great to get eighth grade students involved and just interested in STEM and in just technical education in general as well. So that was great. And then the last item of note, well, I guess two more items. Number one, I know it's been a while since all of us have met together, but just want to highlight a really neat project that two of our students in horticulture did. They are two veterans. They had gone through tough times as a family. And so one way that they wanted to give back, they are first year students, they started this idea of a giving tree. We put up a large Christmas tree in the lobby of our trades building, and then all of our trades and horticulture programs that are also in that building decorated little trees that are something that was special to them. So for example, our plumbing program had things like toilet plunger ornaments on their tree and stuff. And so just kind of had a neat little competition, but then the larger goal was people giving items for veterans in need. And helped by the disabled American veterans as well. So that was just a neat project that, to your point, Brian, hopefully they plan to do it for many years to go. So hopefully next year will become 2 years and then a tradition. And then our final item is we have announced that Wells Fargo will be our industry partner of the year for this year, which is something that we announce every year. and then honor and spotlight them at our spring commencement ceremony. Obviously, Wells Fargo, with the donation for our new home building lab, we will break ground on that the week of graduation. So that'll be the week of May 3rd. May 4th. Let me get that date right. We're not quite sure exactly what date that will be. We are working with a couple people to make sure that date gets finalized, but we'll send out an invitation to all of you as well if you'd like to attend when we know the exact date and time of that celebration as well. So that's all I have, but would be happy to answer any questions.
You know, the E in STEM stands for engineering, and so having the water main break might have provided some real world opportunities for any future hydraulic engineers or anyone in that field. So
it was quite ironic of all days. Yeah.
Of all days. Yeah. Murphy's Law. That's no time. Learning about Murphy's Law in 8th grade is an appropriate time to learn about it too. So
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, anything else out of Southeast Tech or for Southeast Tech? Okay, Western Dakota, President Erickson.
Yes. Well, I'll echo the same sentiments of all presidents. So thank you for everyone during the legislative cycle. I think I stayed at a different hotel every time I was in Pierre. Share the wealth, share the wealth around. But it was a good first session for me to be a part of. I won't go through all of it, but just highlighting what was in the packet. I kind of feel like since we visited, what Western Dakota Tech has been trying to do is show up and show out into our communities, and we have a lot to celebrate, and we have a lot of where we were showing up. So whether they were scrubs camps that were coming to campus, I'll tell you though, if you're trying to engage 10th graders at 8:45, 200 plus of them. That's a special speech that you give as a president at 8:45 to 200 plus 10th graders. You take that in a whole different approach than you would if you're visiting with other stakeholders. So they do like walking tacos. It's their #1 item that they like. So if you want to know what to feed them, they like walking tacos. So we hosted scrub camps, both collectively, but also Rapid City Schools does their own unique one. So we do a special one specifically for them because they do have such a large population. But something else that took place during the spring time was we heard from our industry partners for high need careers. And so we hosted a career fair specifically for our high need careers. And that was we had industry partners from healthcare, business, construction, trades, all across the board. But that was a great way for our students to get into conversations with where these high needs are. But also we were able to, specifically in the health sector, we have a mobile sim unit. We take that on the road, whether that's for education at the high school level, but also into our communities with our healthcare sector. So those, like we've been, whether that's in Hot Springs or we're going to fill up where some of our more critical access hospitals are, but where they have the low frequency, high risk competencies that they can't necessarily come into Rapid for some of that education. We have the ability to bring that mobile sim unit with all of the high fidelity to them and make sure that our healthcare workers have the competencies that they need. So we did some good OB cases out in Phillip with their ER and the providers out there, both their medical providers, but also their nurses. So that one continues to be used. They're kind of doing what I want to call a mobile sim tour in West River for those needs. Another great one to celebrate was Weld to Win. This was my first time being a part of that. So in Weld to Win, that was specifically for our welding program, but over 74 competitors from the Black Hills area high schools were coming in to compete for that full ride scholarship. And so that is amazing to see the turnout specifically for welding for that one. And then last, just like Corey said, they did the East Consortium over spring break. We did the West Consortium over spring break. We've added some new members, so we're up to 25 school districts that are a part of that consortium here in West River. Had about 80 participants that were there for that. One piece that was talked about, because it does relate to that consortium, is we are looking at a grant that's specific. It's called the Catapult Program. I'll bring more information later about that, but it is really trying to pull together both in our CTE area for business sectors, some of those workforce experts in there, as well as our high school area, where we will be providing education over hopefully a 2-year program for the Catapult program. So we are working with a local nonprofit for some funding for that program, but we are hearing from across the board that it's not just about the education, but it's about how can we improve how we're doing CTE. So that one will probably come out of the consortium, and they had conversations about that at their meeting this year. And then lastly was a couple things that we're underway on. So if you heard about it, they are posted on our website. We have 2 RFPs that are out right now. One specific for marketing and branding. And so that one concludes, I think, next month. And then the other one is, as we are looking at our updates to our campus master plan, we have an RFP out on that as well. So if you see those out there, I just wanted to bring awareness that those are underway, and we'll have more information as they kind of conclude. So I will open that up for any questions that anyone has. It's like a staff meeting. It's quiet.
If you have staff meetings right before lunch at noon, it often gets quiet when you ask for questions at 11:57 a.m.
That's right. That's right.
At least in the cheese factory. I don't know about your guys' world. Okay, hearing no other questions, we are through the items we have on the agenda. Anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sabers?
Law seconds.
God, I'm gonna make you do it. Roll call to get out of here.
Dover,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Law,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Sabers,
Yes.
Sandvig,
Yes.
Schallenkamp,
Yes.
and Stuckey.
Yes.
8 ayes.
Great meeting. Thanks everyone for your time and attention today. To the campuses, you guys are doing a great job. You make us so proud. It's so easy to tell the overall story when, you know, individually you all are doing so well. Thanks for your leadership. Thanks for your impact you're having on the communities, and thanks for letting us be a part of it. And special call out, Nick, Scott, Jenna, you guys do a very great job of being prepared for these meetings and making it easy for somebody to fill in for Dana. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day,
Good job,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.